Today's edition of 5-Minute History will be focused upon the Gladiators of Pompeii. Ancient Pompeians were dedicated to their lust for blood and high-octane combat sports, and were well known for their high-performing and popular gladiators. The Gladiators of Pompeii had a high social standing and were seen similarly to how modern athletes are, being not only quite popular locally, but regionally as well, with the likes of famed Marcus Attilius, who became a fighter on his own accord, unlike most fighters who found themselves fighting for their freedom from slavery. Although it was uncommon to see freed slaves or challengers fighting for money within gladiatorial games, the unrivaled social standing and fame achieved from the title drew many wanting to gain this prestige, whether it be for the money or women, which Pompeian fighters were often attributed with, became a popular profession for fame-seeking Pompeians. One such example of this, as previously mentioned, was Marcus Attilius, a fighter who joined and began fighting on his own accord. As quoted from history, to make matches as equal as possible, Roman overseers generally assigned gladiators to compete against people of roughly similar experience level, novices against novices, experts against experts. But when Marcus Attilius first stepped into the amphitheater in Pompeii, as tyro, a term for new gladiator, he faced Hilicrus, a veteran fighter who had won 12 out of 14 matches in his career, equal to 7 years of experience as a gladiator. In a stunning performance, the young Marcus Attilius not only fought Hilicrus to a surrender, but in his next battle defeated another 12-time winning gladiator for back-to-back upsets. This prompted Pompeii graffiti artists of the time to memorialize his achievement. This specific fresco, or one similar to it, was found within a tavern inside the city, depicting the bloody end to one of the city's many fights. This specific fresco highlighting the gruesome reality of Pompeians' fight for glory and freedom. The dedication to Pompeii's gladiators should not come as a surprise, though, as Pompeii's amphitheater held an astonishing 20,000 spectators. Nothing to rival the Roman Colosseum, but impressive nonetheless. Not to mention, during the time of Marcus Attilius, the estimated population of Pompeii was to be only 11,000, making the amphitheater capable of holding nearly double the city's population. Now, despite what modern movies may portray, gladiators very rarely fought to the death, as gladiator bouts were more of a show rather than brutal combat. The reason behind this was due to the high cost of not only training the gladiators, but the prestige and profit an owner could expect from owning a gladiator. We know this due to the common themes of graffiti throughout Pompeii. You would often have caught graffiti on your way into Pompeii as a sort of update or news report. This was etched into stone on mostly the entrances into Pompeii. The victor's name would be marked with a V if they were victorious, an M if they were to be defeated, and if a gladiator was to fall in combat, they were marked with a P, acknowledging to passerbys and locals that the gladiator was no longer a living fighter. However, this was rarely the case, as Pompeii's prize fighters would be no good dead, and would bring in no crowds that became familiar with their favorite fighters' names. The life of Pompeian gladiators was quite different to that of their counterparts. For a gladiator, technically held in captivity, they still had their own living quarters, mess hall, and rooms. And despite being quite small, their training quarters were exceptionally large. Being in their own private building, this open ground was quite fascinating. If you happen to find yourself near Pompeii, or in Pompeii, these are well worth visiting. Despite having these private quarters, life as a gladiator was still pretty doom and gloom. Most of them were still slaves, and had low life expectancies after all. Their job truly was a fight to the death scenario, and even if they survived the fight, many of the wounds they would sustain during them would have been severe, greatly shortening their lifespans or hindering their future abilities in combat. Similarly to other Roman cities during the time, Pompeians dedicated much of their time to creating art and carvings that truly let us look back in time and understand what they were thinking and what their priorities were. One such example, allowing us to truly understand how important gladiators were in Pompeian culture, was a 12-foot tomb header that was unearthed within the city. This tomb header depicted gladiators clashing, allowing us to understand throughout time how important gladiators were in Pompeian culture. Despite the many social benefits being a gladiator may have gained you in Pompeii, it didn't change the fact that you were still fighting in a gruesome bloodbath to either surrender or death. And with these facts in mind, would you become a Pompeian gladiator, sacrificing or risking your life for fame and fortune? Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video.